Hi, I'm Victoria. I'm a child psychiatrist and a parent coach, and I'm here to answer the questions that you have as a parent that will make it easier for you to do your absolute best. Today, I'm going to answer the question around childcare. Lots of people ask me, when can I put my child into childcare? Is it too early before the age of 3? Or actually, should I do it at all? And I want to tell you what my thoughts are about this. Putting your child into childcare is a really big decision, but it's important to weigh up lots of different factors when it comes to this. Generally, what the evidence says is that there isn't really any evidence for childcare generally being bad as a rule of thumb, but you need to be careful about when the childcare happens and what quality childcare it is. So you definitely need to be aware as a parent that from the age of 0 to 3, there's a very sensitive period. And in my experience personally working with children, I think the age from 0 to 1 is extra sensitive. So the stuff that happens around that time is really complex, especially when it comes to attachment. Now, putting a child into childcare before the age of 3 doesn't automatically mean they're going to have insecure attachment or it's going to affect their attachment too much necessarily. It all depends what the childcare is and what the quality of the childcare is. That's really the main thing. So one of the things that you need to think about is how many hours you put them in for. The only evidence there is really around hours is that certainly over 30 hours a week before the age of 3 could make the child have difficult behaviours later on as they're growing up. And for some families where there is difficulties within the family, even as little as 10 hours a week can be enough to disrupt some of the attachment patterns. But the evidence for that is fairly vague and is definitely not very clear cut that if you do that, you'll definitely have a child with insecure attachment. But the risk obviously increases. And one of the reasons that the risks of having insecure attachment increase the more hours you put them to childcare for is because sensitivity is the main factor in attachment. And obviously, if you're not seeing your child enough to know what their different cues are, it's going to be difficult for you to be sensitive. But that doesn't mean you have to be with them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to be sensitive to them. There isn't a magical number of hours, it's different for every parent, but as long as you feeling confident that you know what your child wants and you can read their cues, it probably means that you are sensitive to what their needs are. So thinking about how many hours to put in, as I said, it's a very personal choice. I think that certainly before the age of 1, if I was choosing whether to put my child into childcare or not, I'd probably struggle to put them into formal childcare. I'd probably look for family childcare, preferably being the other parent or perhaps grandparents who know the child very well and can be very sensitive to their needs, because that's the main important thing, is how sensitive is the childcare going to be to your child's needs. But what we do find is that actually, certainly after the age of 1, if you have good childcare, and this can be formal, so it can be a nursery or a childminder, if the childcare is of good quality, then actually the attachments form in the right way and child's emotional development isn't impaired in any way. So what makes childcare good? If they looked at the evidence, they've said that actually the person giving the childcare has a higher education level, so they have a better understanding of development of the child, so they know what the child is likely to need. Having quite high staff ratios to the child, so the more staff there are, and having that kind of key worker for your child, so that your child understands who's the main person that they ask to support them and get their needs met. That is really important in helping to foster that positive attachment. And the last thing that's quite important is having a small number of children that are looked after in the same place. So when they looked at different groups, it said that a group of 6 or less children is the best size, really. That having really big groups when there's lots of different staff and the staff change all the time and perhaps the staff are not very well trained, that's the sort of setting where you're not going to get great childcare and you risk disrupting some of the attachment patterns and you risk the behaviours getting worse as they get older. So I think if I was thinking about childcare myself, what I would look for is I would try to not put my child into formal childcare if I can before the age of 1. Though to be fair, if you are the only person, if you're a single mum or a single dad and you're the only person looking after your child and actually you're really frazzled because you haven't got any family around and it's really difficult for you to always be looking after this child and you feel really tired, that's probably going to affect your sensitivity. So actually, if you weigh that up against your child being in childcare for a few hours a week so you can get some things done, you can just get your head together again and then be more sensitive when they return. Probably on balance, it's better for your child to have some limited childcare so that you feel in a better place to be more sensitive. So there's no hard and fast rules here, but if you can find sensitive childcare from family, that's probably going to be a better option if it's possible. And certainly after the age of 1, it's a bit of a less sensitive period, and I'd probably go for something that's organised like a childminder or nursery, but I would definitely look for how many adults there are, whether there is a specific adult that your child will know who they can approach, who is in charge of meeting their particular needs, and how big the groups are really. So that's really important. And also to see how sensitive the caregiving is. It's very difficult on nursery visits, but you usually get a general sense. So that's going to be my general advice, but remember that it is important that as a parent you do get some time to yourself. Don't think that you have to be with your child 24 hours a day. I have to say, very early on in life, sort of up to the age of 6 months, it's probably fairly difficult to have great childcare that doesn't affect your attachment, because a child does need to find people to attach to. But if it's family members who the child already knows, then it's probably going to be the easiest thing for work, very, very early on, especially if you have to return to work for some reason very early on. It's best to find people who can look after your child, who can do so continuously, so it's consistent, because then that person will become part of their attachment system and it will help build secure attachment. So that would be my general guidance. It is a very personal issue, and there's definitely not any hard and fast rules about childcare, but that's what the evidence says. I hope you found that helpful. If you do have any questions that you want answering, please do put them in the comment below. I do look at them, and I'll definitely do a video on things that are probably going to be interesting to other parents as well.